Oh my gosh. It is so great to see you all. Welcome home. Just amazing. I've actually been asking for our old Facebooks, not Facebook, but we actually had books with all of your faces in them. It's just delightful to see you all. No one has aged a day, which is remarkable. We're just so thrilled to see you. Thank you so much for coming. So this is like our favorite event of the year. It brings together people from all over the world, our alums, our students, our faculty, our staff. And we have an exceptional lineup for you today. We have faculty with their mind-blowing research. We have alumni telling their stories. We're going to talk about and celebrate our DLPs. We have Chancellor Lyons in the house. And I'm particularly thrilled because I've taught almost every reunion class that's here this year. Are we sure that's right? Because isn't like 1940 here? No, okay. Now, before anyone asks, no, I don't have a favorite class. I actually love all the classes the same, just like my children. But I will say that the class of 1995 is in the house. And that was both Rich and my first class that we ever taught here at Haas. So, yeah, amazing. I look forward to reconnecting with all of you. Before I invite Chancellor Lyons up to talk about our DLPs, I wanted to provide you with a bit of an update on what we've been up to here at Haas. A little bit on our programs, a little bit on faculty growth, and just a kind of foreshadowing of our DLP story. So let me launch in and tell you a little bit about what we've been up to. There's been a lot going on. First, with regards to our MBA journey. In our full-time MBA program, we launched a brand new dual degree program with the College of Natural Resources called the MBA Masters in Climate Solutions. And we had a fantastic program. We had a really robust applicant pool. We selected 12 exquisite students in this program. They're in their first year now. It's a 5-semester program. They take their first year in the core here with us at Haas. Honestly, we invited them yesterday to our board meeting, and I feel much better about the climate crisis right now. So they are brilliant. We hosted the Climate Cap this February, March, which was the bringing together of 500 MBAs from all over the country, all focused on climate issues. Our students worked with our staff to develop and run that program. I think we had 67 different sessions and speakers, world-class level. It was amazing. So we're in deep on sustainability and climate. In our evening weekend MBA program, we've been working on our student experience, always working to improve it. We have more opportunities for our students to network through small dinners with faculty. I used my very small budget to bring back casual breakfast for our weekend students. They look like they needed a little protein in the morning, so we've done that. Meanwhile, in our executive MBA program, our first and second year students now take some classes together, which was something that we didn't do before, so they have more opportunities for networks. We're developing an immersion program for them in Japan. There's more news on that to come. And we have big news, of course, in our undergraduate program. We admitted the inaugural class of our speaker 4-year undergraduate program this fall 24. It is a game changer. And if you are ever short on energy and need a shot in the arm, you need to talk to our unbelievable undergraduate students. We had an orientation program for them up in Lake Tahoe called Base Camp, which Ned Speaker, for whom the program is named, and I went and visited these students. It was amazing. At least 15 of them have been to my office. I mean, they're just out of high school, right? At least 15 have been to my office pitching their company ideas. They are spectacular. You cannot even imagine. So your unwavering support of Haas has helped us continue to grow and elevate our reputation. So let me give you some rankings news. We're number 8 among U.S. business schools overall and 15th internationally in the Financial Times Global MBA ranking. Meanwhile, our evening weekend MBA program is number 1. Okay, number 1 in U.S. News and World Report. Our MBA program came up a point to number 6 from number 7. Our full-time program remained the number 1 public university, public MBA program in the country. We're ranked 11 overall. Okay, first, before you say anything, Poets and Quants magazine, which is like the Vanity Fair kind of gossip magazine for MBA programs, they ran an article right after the rankings were listed with the heading, Haas gets a raw deal, and I actually agree with them. The rankings are a kind of interesting. We haven't been as thoughtful in approaching the rankings as we need to be. They're an important indicator, and so we're pulling together data. We're developing a strategy. We have a new CMO, Joey Schmidt. He's doing a fantastic job. One of our big challenges is that a big marker on those rankings is how quickly students accept jobs after they finish their MBA. And our students are very, very selective about the jobs that they're going to take. And so speed to accepting a position is not such a great marker for us. People are starting their own companies. They're going into tech, which has been volatile and uncertain. So you're going to see us moving back up those rankings very, very soon. We continue to be ranked first for lifetime ROI, delivering exceptional value through our astounding faculty, students, amazing alumni network. And let me tell you a little bit more about those faculty. So over the last 5 years, we've hired 43 new ladder faculty. These are our research-based faculty who of course teach as well. This is the largest faculty the school has ever had in its history. We have 103 ladder faculty. And let me tell you, I was associate dean for a lot of this, where we were recruiting our faculty. I mean, we yanked them away from the best schools. So Martin Baraja, who just joined us, a senior faculty member from MIT. We recruited David Chan, who's not just a PhD in economics, he is also an MD. He's running our Robinson Life Science Business and Entrepreneurship Program, a joint degree at the undergraduate level with biology. We got him from Stanford. Okay, I'm just saying. Kelsey Jack, perhaps the most impressive mid-career environmental economist out there, we recruited here. And so our faculty, to a person, are rock stars. It's really just quite incredible. Of course, as AI advances at breakneck speed, our faculty are teaching our students how to differentiate what's real from what is hype, a theme that we always worry about. Right in this room after this session, Jonathan Kolstad will be presenting on use cases in healthcare for AI. It turns out AI is working really well for optimizing your insurance plan, not as well for diagnosing and differentiating between whether you have a heart condition or cancer. So there's still work to be done there. It's fascinating work. So stick around if you are interested in that. Anastasia Fedek in our finance group is researching firm-level implications for hiring and innovation. Abhishek Nagaraj is looking at how the AI industry is evolving and who's poised to dominate among different organizations. And so the work is really just so fascinating. Of course, none of our work would be possible without your help. Whether it's launching the speaker program or our eHub, if you have a chance to wander down to the eHub. We're going to be giving tours there, supporting our research institutes, providing scholarships and fellowships for our students, endowing faculty positions, or the unbelievably valuable annual contributions that you make. You are the cornerstone of Berkeley Haas, and we could not be more grateful. Thank you. Yes, thank you to you. So now more than ever, when universities are feeling immense pressure to capitulate on their vision and values, we ask for your continued support. You're going to see QR codes around throughout the day. Please help us in funding the next generation of Haas leaders. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the 15th year of our DLPs. These DLPs anchor our community. They distinguish us from our peers. We've been celebrating since February, big and small ways. I was so thrilled that I got to create a DLP video. They made me do it on my bike. So I was like talking and riding, and it ended up working out okay. We recently had a special Dean Speaker Series where we invited 3 of our alums from different generations, 2 of which are on our advisory board, to discuss what the DLPs have meant to them. And culture really runs deep here at Haas, as you know. At last count, there are about 180 different practices associated with our DLPs. Our students apply to the school, writing admissions essays about how they connect with a DLP. We evaluate our faculty according to their ability to uphold our defining leadership principles. We have a wine label for DLPs. We are a California school, of course. And I have to tell you a story about the DLPs before I invite Chancellor Lyons up. I was at a restaurant about 2 months ago with some friends, totally unconnected to the university or to Haas. And it was a little bit of a special event, so we were getting a kitchen tour after the dinner. And so we had this lovely meal, and we got up and we walked into the kitchen, and the first thing I saw was over the stove a sign, kind of fancy sign, that said, "Question the status quo." I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But question the status quo, maybe that's a fairly common saying. So I'm like, okay. Then we turn to the wall behind, and it says, "Students always." Like, what? And then we turn to the next wall, and it says, "Beyond yourself." This is creepy. What is happening? We turn to the next wall. What do you think it said? Confidence without attitude. And I am like, what is going on? So I asked the chef, like, what are these? And he actually started explaining. He said, well, these are these great sayings. My wife went to the Haas School of Business in 1999, and we found these so useful that we incorporated them into our business. And he had placed the signs according to the kind of behaviors that he wanted to occur. So, question the status quo. The sous chefs were looking up at the stove, at the chefs. He wanted to be sure that they questioned those senior chefs about what they were up to. Students always is the direction that the chefs look in. He wanted them to remember that they had a role in mentoring the sous chefs. So it was a really remarkable experience, and kind of a double take. Culture runs deep here at Haas, and these DLPs have been really, really important to us. And so I can think of no better person who embodies and who championed those DLPs than our very own Chancellor Lyons. Let me please invite you up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. We like to think of this as an easy gig for the Chancellor, given the other kinds of things he's talking about right now. But welcome back to Haas, Rich.
Thank you, Jenny.
Before we dig into the DLPs, I know everyone would be really interested to know kind of what's top of mind in your new job as Chancellor, if you want to give us a little bit of an update on what's happening campus-wide.
Well, there is a thing or two going on in higher ed these days. We could spend a lot of time on this, but we shouldn't. So I'll start with this. We are going to get through this. I promise you we are going to get through this. This institution's been around for over 150 years, and it's going to be around another 150. And also, our values, these defining leadership principles, or DLPs as we call them, we need to stick to our values. So you have my commitment that we will stick to our values. It's complicated out there, and we need to do the right thing. And it's interesting, I won't mention which of the universities, but there are 7 now universities that have been hit with particular sort of bulk terminations of contracts and grants. And this was a senior colleague of ours elsewhere in the university, but she said, "Oh, look at how much pride in that institution got destroyed. We can't let that happen." So, but I am super excited about this role. I mean, some of you know this, right? But I got my undergraduate degree here. Neither of my parents had a 4-year degree. I don't know if I knew anybody with a PhD. You've all heard the phrase, "You can't be what you can't see." So the life that became available to me, which was opened up by Berkeley, unmistakably, was not a life I could see, even close to see. I was an undergraduate business major. I wanted to get an MBA. I was going into business. I come from a business family, that kind of stuff, right? So anyways, I'm after all these years together, I'm still indebted to Berkeley, and I need to earn my time in this role, of course, but I do intend to be in it for a decade, because I think there's some stuff we can do together over the next 10 years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So one of the funnest things that I got to do as interim dean, or I decided to do, was to walk around to all of the first-year classes of our students in the fall and teach them about the DLPs, which was great. They all knew them. They had to apply using them, so they memorized them. And so I remember, Rich and I actually started the same year, 1993. Yep. Right? We were
exactly.
4 years old, is that? And we had offices next door to each other. And I remember you went away for a couple years to be the chief learning officer at Goldman Sachs. And then we recruited Rich back to become our dean at Haas. And when you came back, I remember you being struck by how a strong culture organization like Goldman Sachs really leverage that culture for its success in some ways. And so I remember you sort of thinking about maybe this would be something that would be relevant at Haas under your leadership. So I'm just wondering, what were you envisioning in those early days about the DLPs and how it would help Haas?
Well, thanks for that. That was 2006. We'd been here for a while. Jenny is an absolute world leader in this area. I had served as acting dean before that, right? And so I had been reading your papers, and we had been talking about stuff like that. I mean, I'm an economist. If you ask an economist where human behavior comes from, they'll ask you, well, what is the reward system? What are the incentives? Who has the decision rights? Who reports to whom, right? Shared norms and values is more the stuff of psychology, social psychology, sociology, et cetera. Anyway, so I wasn't kind of geared to see the world through that lens. You helped me see it through that lens in that year that I was acting dean. And then I went to Goldman Sachs and sort of like, wow, I had never seen what intentionality around organizational culture looks like, right? Higher ed is not, if you don't mind my calling it an industry, it's not an industry that's all that intentional about culture, not the way a lot of strong culture outside organizations are. And so I got to see that. So I was chief learning officer, which put me just ex officio on a group called the Operating Committee for HR, the Human Capital Management. They called it HCM. But so that means that, with the head of HR, like who's going to get what bonus? Who stepped over what line and shouldn't have, and what are we going to do to them? And also, how do we manage culture? And so it's just sort of like, wow, I mean, you want to see intentionality? You got intentionality. So that idea of execution on culture and how you take it seriously. So I came back here from that role, and it's sort of like, I went onto the Haas website, and I searched for core values, culture, and nothing had been codified. Of course, Haas in 2000, this is back in 2008, but in 2008, of course Haas had a culture, right? Berkeley has a culture. Every institution has a de facto culture. Yeah. But it was just sort of like, what would bringing some intentionality look like? So that was the first moment that it sort of, I'll borrow a term from entrepreneurship. It's sort of like opportunity recognition. It sort of felt like, ooh, there may be some upside here.
Yeah, so then you got really intentional and deliberate. You got serious. So what did it take to start ingraining the DLPs into the fabric of life at Haas?
Well, this is, people sometimes attribute them to me. I mean, this was a team effort. I'm not just saying that. I remember when we first heard Confidence Without Attitude, it was a recruiter that said, why we hire your students here? Because they have confidence without attitude. It's like, write that down. That just works. That just works. And there were a lot of, we were kicking around different variations, and there was a list of things we were considering, of course. But the stuff that I learned from you and other people was, how do you execute on culture? It's one thing to have the content of the culture. It's like, wow, students always, right? Are we going to be coachable our whole lives long? Are we really going to get what that means? So that's not just lifelong learning. It's really, how coachable are we really? That's the way, anyways. So you can drive into the content all you want, but at the end of the day, it's like, what lever? So one of the things that somebody said to me, I'll just share this with you. Somebody said, think of this 8.5 by 11 page here as a set of business processes, operating processes, right? And so if you think about admissions, and you think about career services, and you think about alumni relations, and you think about how you hire your faculty, and you onboard your staff, and all of that, right? It's like, and so if you just, like I started with admissions, like there's 6 degree programs. How about just 1 degree program, whichever one you want to pick, right? Sort of like, yeah, well, there are like 10 levers that we could change for the admissions process in that one program. Like, we're going to interview people. What questions are you going to ask? What does the interview assessment form look like? How are you going to train the interviewers? What questions are you going to ask the letter writers, right? What are you going to say in the admissions, as you're going out to try and get interested in the program, right? And so forth. Anyway, so it's like, yeah, you don't want to, so there are hundreds and hundreds of levers of operating changes you can make. Yeah. Now, not all of them are right. If you make a card with the DLPs in it and you hand it to the faculty, right, they'll cringe. I mean, there are a lot of things on this sheet you don't want to do. But it's sort of like, how many of them are you going to do? And once you drive them into business processes like that, like here's a question that every letter writer is going to address, somebody has to undo it. Somebody has to undo it. That creates durability. And that kind of intentionality was just, I wasn't seeing it when we started on that. Yeah.
So we did get some early resistance.
Yeah,
and I remember the faculty being a little bit hard to convince. Do you remember what kind of brought the...
Yeah. No, it still hurts. Yeah.
Well, I vaguely remember the faculty starting to come around when they actually started to have better experiences in the classroom and started seeing that we were getting more of the students that we wanted, right? And right, that they were seeing that people were responding to this, the students were excited about it, people had language around it. Yeah. Was that the kind of the breakthrough there?
Well, I think that was the turning point for a lot of faculty. Look, a lot of our colleagues were very excited about this, right? And now we're just talking about the faculty now, but many were excited, right? But I think people that come more from my background were skeptical. The economists, the finance faculty, real estate, et cetera. I mean, and it's sort of, well, look, let's be honest with ourselves. There are a lot of culture efforts that founder in the world, right? So if you're going to give skepticism its due, and I think skepticism is in order here, I'll give you another example. In the prior 7 years, when I started as dean, we had 5 dean transitions. Right? So when you're thinking about this, it's actually, so remember Tom Campbell, and then Tom Campbell went to, so what I'll go through them very quickly. So Laura Tyson moved on. Ben Hermelin was the interim dean for a while. And then Tom Campbell came in. So that's 2. And then Tom Campbell became the director of finance for Governor Schwarzenegger, and we didn't know if he was going to come back. And that's 3, and I was the interim dean then. And then Tom did come back. So there's 4. And then I became dean, and there's 5. So it's sort of
I
like...
think that's 6.
Well, maybe that's 6. But
the finance guy?
But I think the point is, if somebody's saying, oh, we have a strategic plan with a set of defining principles in it, I mean, you can see why people are pretty rationally skeptical there, right? How long is this going to last, right? And then, anyway, so I'm going to call that rational skepticism. But I think that's one of the things I learned from other people about change management, right? It's sort of like, you should assume whatever resistance you're hearing is rational. You better start there. Yeah. If you assume that the resistance you're hearing and seeing is because you just don't like to change, I mean, people will bury you for that. It's sort of like, if you're not going to trust even the starting point, we're not going to move in the direction you want us to, right? And so I think it was pretty rational skepticism, but we stuck to it.
Yeah, and people have talked about the lore of the 5th DLP. The 5th DLP. Does anyone know what the 5th DLP is? Do you know what it is? We have 4, and then there was a 5th that we talked about.
Yeah.
Or, there were many 5ths. But
there
was
many
one,
fifths.
One primary one, which was excellence. Excellence. And I thought that one was pretty good. And you convinced me that excellence was not a differentiator. Excellence was like the price of entry, right? I mean, in part, the deal, right? Right?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
I remember there was one, it was an orientation. The students had just been through the admissions process, so they all knew these principles. And I remember it was like the first meeting, me with them, and one of the, after I talked about the DLPs a little bit and what they could expect to see in the behavior of their classmates, a woman raised her hand and said, what was the last candidate you took off the list? What was the 5th one? Nobody had ever asked me that question. And it really was excellence. And there were plenty of people in our community that were sort of saying, I'm not going to let you write down core values. By the way, we started by calling them core values. And there are enough people, including faculty, it's like, don't tell me what my core values are, right? It's sort of like, oh, interesting, okay. So let's call them principles.
Find another name for those.
And by the way, if you were there at the beginning, we didn't call them defining leadership principles. We called them defining principles. And linking them to leadership and the mission actually came a little bit later. But in any event, so there are a lot of wonderful but unobjectionable values out there. And we really wanted to separate. We weren't doing this just for competitive separation, but this is a highly distinctive place. And Berkeley is a highly distinctive place. And so one of the things when I talk about these sometimes at the university context, I will sometimes say, all right, imagine, I'll just use imagine I'm the president of Harvard University, obviously a great university, or the dean of HBS, and I'm standing up in front of a group of people, and I'm saying, Harvard University, we're all about questioning the status quo. Yeah. And that's a hard, now there are plenty of scholars and people at Harvard questioning the status quo every day. It's a great university. That's not the point. But it's not where they come from. And they weren't going to say that. And the idea of questioning the status quo, there's got to be a way to do that. Sort of like everybody wants to hire, most people want to hire, there's got to be a way to do that. And that's not one-to-one with intelligence. It's actually a different quality. So part of it was, I felt like if we put unobjectionable, everybody says them values, like even, imagine if just the first one was excellence, I think it would have sucked a lot of oxygen out of the room. Yeah. It doesn't mean we're not committed to it.
Yeah. So then we started seeing signs of adoption, embodiment, and I remember you you started sending around examples when things would come to you through our broad community, and you sent me one of my favorite, which was someone who had left his consulting, his large, fancy consulting firm, and started his own firm that he called CWA Inc., Confidence Without Attitude. Do you remember?
Yes,
you may not
I do.
remember
That's
sending
now.
that. What are your favorite specifics that you saw in terms of manifestations of the DLPs?
Well, thanks. These things did pop up, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to remember that story. And Tenny and the whole team, right? We would codify stories and use them again and again and again. I mean, sometimes I think people heard me tell the story so many times, it's like, find another story, man. You just keep telling the same story. And my wife tells me that all the time too. I should say, but actually. Because I knew we were going to talk about this, I'm going to read, I'm not going to say the name, but here's one of my faves, right? And I think we're all storytellers here. So this was in an email. Dean Lyons, I'm an MBA alum from 2011, and our family recently welcomed our first child, Nikhil, into the world. A question I've been asking many of my friends and family, if there are 3 behaviors, values, ideas you can guarantee Nikhil will believe in by his 18th birthday, what would they be? I've gotten several very interesting answers, and my summary of them became 1, a focus on education, 2, a perspective greater than oneself, and 3, resilience through tough times. Then I thought about it some more and realized these represent our core defining principles: students always, beyond yourself, and confidence without attitude. The Haas culture transcends generations. End of email.
Nice.
Isn't that lovely?
Beautiful. Love that.
That's a fave. And by the way, I happened to see this person at an event just about 6 months ago in Southern California, and I shared with him that it was still on my phone.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, in my travels this year to meet with our alums around the world, I've had at least 3 on 2 different continents say that they are raising their children according to the DLPs. So I think that's a theme. So it's amazing, really amazing. I'm sorry to break in, but raising your kids. So my son, he was in high school. My son's out of high school now, he's 25. But he was in high school, and I was driving him to high school, and he knows a little bit about this stuff. I was dean then. And I said, Jake, as I'm dropping you off today, I would just like you to think about what your defining principles are. And he looked over at me and he said, Dad, that's not a thing. That's what he said. Nice. Okay, so we're kind of firing on all cylinders, and your 10-year term as dean comes up, and we're starting to think about the next dean transition, which resulted in Dean Ann Harrison coming on board. I remember you thinking about how to kind of look forward and ensure that the DLPs transcend leadership changes and exogenous shocks and the rest of it. So what were you thinking about in terms of embedding the values when they were initiated by one leader and yet, needing to transcend and stay with the organization regardless of leadership? We wanted them to be kind of evergreen, I guess, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and they do need to evolve, and we haven't changed sort of the top line 4, but we've changed the 10 words under each of them a bit over the years, if you've been keeping close tabs. Anyways, I really have to credit you for asking me a very powerful question. I think it was about a year before I'd announced I was stepping down. It was within that year, and you were saying, what are you going to do? What are we going to do to keep the culture strong in the leadership transition? And you might imagine that I would have asked myself that question or asked other people that question, but it was sort of like, oh my gosh, yes, we have to bring some intentionality to it. In fact, you and I ended up writing a case on exactly that. But I think if we hadn't put intention into that question, right, a lot of things well, who knows exactly what would have happened, but I'm sure you recall. So we wrote a case that basically said, here are like 10 things that we did in the 6 to 12 months before the leadership transition to keep those defining principles strong. And many, if you recall, many of those were things that were not levers that we had available to us when we launched the defining principles. I think that's an important insight. Like, for example, one of the things that we did is we drove them into the teaching evaluations of all of our faculty. There's now a question in every Haas teaching evaluation. Does this faculty member represent well the Haas School's 4 defining principles? I think if we had tried to do that in 2010 when we were rolling this out, the faculty would have said, what are you doing? Right? Again, the skepticism, this isn't going to stick, you're putting it in the teaching evaluation. No. 10 years later, we were able to get that done. Anyways, yeah, I'll give you a couple of other examples. So we didn't want to tie the hands of the next dean per se, but one of the things we did is we basically drafted a letter from the board, and the board signed it and said, we are completely committed to the importance and value of these defining principles, and we basically intend them to continue to be strong. And that was before. You couldn't have done that, I think, when there was a new dean. It would have been like, why are you saying that to a new dean? But we got that done before we knew who the next dean was. These might sound like small things, but they're actually things that can help create some durability that you never quite know what's going to happen in a leadership transition.
So how do you see the DLPs intersect with your new role? I mean, do you ever find yourself falling back and saying, students always, sorry. That was because we have these 8 principles of community for the university, which are quite powerful. You can Google that. 8 principles.
There are actually
UC Berkeley.
7. That's okay.
7.
That's right. Yeah. That's
I must have made it excellence or something.
That's
I mean, on a more serious note, you can respond in terms of using the DLPs or using the principles of community in your role to unify the campus as a whole.
Yeah, thanks for that. So if you think about those 4 principles, and you think about question the status quo and free speech and Berkeley's history and so forth, it's sort of like, those are very much principles of the mothership, right? I mean, if somebody said, is question the status quo a good description of Berkeley as a whole, right? Is beyond yourself a good description of Berkeley? So that's part of why it works so well at Haas, is because it was so aligned with some of the things that Berkeley is known for and has been for a long time. It doesn't mean the campus would have selected exactly that wording, but they were reflections of what Berkeley was. I'll give you another example. When we were trying, you'll remember this, I think, when we were trying to figure out the exact right words, there was a category of culture that when we first started putting words to it, it was like challenge authority.
Right.
And it's like, but we're a business school. Sort of like, and then the phrase challenge the status quo was a variation. And question the status quo is something our faculty do all the time, and it's sort of like, let's land at question the status quo, and usually the second line out of my mouth is, there's got to be a better way to do this, and because everybody wants to hire the latter kind of a thing. Anyways, but there was a lot of variation there. So now, the idea, though, of porting something that many people on campus view as having developed at Haas to the campus, right? There's a little bit of not invented here, right? So in terms of change management, it's like, we're just going to port them over and run. It's like, that's just not going to work by itself. But I use these phrases all the time. Question the status quo is in my remarks a lot. And then the question is, how do we want to, maybe here's one way to think about it. These principles of community, which are very powerful. There are things like, free speech is on that list, or mission impact. To what use are we going to put Berkeley? Berkeley is one of society's most valuable assets. We need to put it to work. We need to put it to use in ways that are most valuable to society. And there are many others. I won't walk you through all 7 of them. I think, though, that the real part of what we did at Haas was really quite separating. And I think Berkeley needs to continue to codify and articulate what is truly separating about it, truly distinctive. And there's so many distinctive things. Did you know, by the way, that Berkeley lifts more people further up the socioeconomic ladder than any other university in the country?
Yeah. Fantastic.
Now, that is and should be a source of great pride. And then if you thought about the next strategic plan, it's sort of like, how do we not just tell that story so everybody hears it, but like double down on it, get even better at it by doing these 5 things and whatever. It's like no private school, private university, given the scale they operate at, could ever kind of, we're not doing this to own the narrative, but private schools just are way too small a scale to own that narrative. No public university does, and it's sort of like, ooh, that feels, and again, opportunity recognition. So I'm trying to find places where we can continue to shape, codify, and sharpen the articulation of Berkeley's culture so that sort of the really big impact that Berkeley has had in the past and will have in the future gets wrapped up into it. But we're not quite there yet.
Great, great. So in my role as interim dean this year, and given that it's the 15th year, I've been asking myself the question, what's the future of the DLPs at Haas? How will our DLPs support future leaders? And clearly, the DLPs have evolved as powerful identifiers for us and differentiators for us in the world. And I have this example from one of our new freshmen in the speaker program. In fact, Mariah McCoy. Mariah, you're not here today, are you? Okay, so she's one of our 4 new speaker scholars, which is we selected 4 students who are particularly wonderful. And she wrote in her application, or reflecting on her application, I'll just quote her, the description of the scholarship was students who exemplify the 4 defining leadership principles, right? So she's applying for the speaker scholar application. She said, these principles mean a lot to me personally. One of the reasons I came to Cal was because I could see the unique culture there, and I really want to be part of that and exhibit the leadership principles in everything I do, especially my favorite one, students always. I've always desired to be a lifelong learner. She's 18. Okay? So modeling that for others, learning inside the classroom, but also through activities and talking with people from different walks of life is something that I want to showcase. Okay, using showcase in your application is always a good move, right? I want to showcase in being a speaker scholar. And what struck me about this was that at 18, our youngest new community member at Haas is already really aware of what these DLPs are. So that's fantastic. Of course, our DLPs must continue to evolve along with our strategy. Even my research shows that companies that develop cultures that are strong also have to be very adaptable over time. So we've introduced this strategic narrative project. Again, I mentioned Joey Schmidt, our new CMO, who's fantastic, where we're gathering information from our community. Maybe some of you have been asked to provide us with your perspective and what the DLPs mean to you. And we're really looking at the role that they're playing and generally what our brand means to the external world and how to align that with our internal culture as well. We're only considering one slight modification, and I'm sure we'll never, ever write it down, but we're kind of thinking it. And it is, our people's favorite DLP is confidence without attitude. And the only problem there is that Haas has for a long time been what many people would describe as a hidden treasure, right? There's so much goodness going on. I mean, I've been here for as long as I've been here. And this year, as interim dean, I discovered at least 8,000 things that I didn't know we were doing. It's just unbelievable what's happening under the hood. And I would love for us to remove the hidden part from hidden treasure. And so when I think about confidence without attitude, I think confidence with a little attitude.
That's a lot more words, though. I mean,
And we're never going to write it down, but we're going to think it because we're so proud of our story, and we need to tell our story to the world. So that's probably the one that we're gonna look at a little bit.
Can I offer just a quick thought on that? Because no, part of it is. Well, here's a story that most of you will not have heard. There are 10, 15 words underneath each of the 4 in the way we usually, present them on the website and so forth. And one of the phrases that before we launched the strategic plan, so this was like, before most people had seen anything, and we had the phrase active listening in that description. And for people, it's sort of like, we're a business school. We want strive, not to take away from active listening, but it sort of felt like it sort of dials us down a little bit in some people's minds, right? Bring on the strivers. We're not trying to dial that down at all. And when I talk about confidence without attitude, I usually one of the next phrases is, true confidence comes without arrogance. And there are a lot of successful leaders who are not well described by that. So we're not saying there's only one way to lead, but true confidence comes without arrogance, at least in Berkeley's view and Haas's view. And so that's kind of where the center of gravity was for me. But when some people just hear confidence without attitude, it's sort of like, where's the striving?
Yeah. Yeah, it's in there already. And that lines up with my narcissism research too. So, Chancellor Lyons, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us on a Saturday morning. Can we please offer our heartfelt
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
We have time for questions?
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh, my. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. That means a great deal to me. I just one personal story and then something I want to do for all of us. But what does this mean to me? So playing this role, I mentioned earlier how important it is. I was walking back from the faculty club. It was 9 p.m. We'd had a dinner at the faculty club. And I was walking through campus. We now live at University House, right? The campus house here. And so I'm walking by the Campanile. It's a chilly, clear night. Campanile's lit up. And then I'm walking by Doe Library, and it's lit up. And I just got overwhelmed. There are so many generations of people who have built this place, right? And they're part of it. And we are stewards of it. So thank you for continuing to make it stronger. Okay, so here's what I'd like to do now. I would like to take a moment to mark a very special occasion. Tenny Frost, can you come up here with me, please? As you've heard, and of course most all of us know, Tenny, it's 31 years of service, and this is, as was said, her final alumni conference in this role. I count myself lucky to have worked with Tenny for more than 20 years, myself. Look, for so many of us, Tenny cares about this place like it's family, right? And sometimes that metaphor went too far. Like she would assign chores to me. That's how much it felt like a family. No, so many times, and like the defining leadership principles, just one little piece of the many areas. But one of the things we did as we were transitioning is we deputized a bunch of people to sort of keep those defining leadership principles strong. And Tenny was among the most active of those deputies. Her joy, it's joy. We've seen it. Her joy in championing alumni and cultivating volunteers set a gold standard, literally campus-wide, for alumni relations work and the culture of giving, the culture of investing back in this institution, which you know how important that is. So thank you all for that. She has also played a pivotal role in codifying, as we said, and promoting. The promoting part is key, those defining leadership principles. This is a model of values-based education, and she has just been a principal leader in making sure that it's tangible and real for all of us, right? We have a lot of alums on the ground here at Haas, and of course at Berkeley more generally. Because of Tenny, we, the alumni, are more connected to Haas. We're more connected to Berkeley, benefiting personally and professionally from the Haas Alumni Network and deriving strength from one another. Tenny, you have given this community your time, you've given us your talent, you've given us your heart. And today, we are proud to recognize and thank you for your exceptional impact. It is a great privilege for me to present to you, Tenny, the Berkeley Citation for your distinguished achievements.
So much. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I've enjoyed every single day of working at the Haas School of Business. What an honor it has been. And my relationship with each of you and collectively as a whole is very, very important to me. Thank you for giving back everything to Haas that you have, your time, your talent, your spirit is so meaningful. And I want to thank my talented team and all the deans that I've worked with. And Rich, thank you very, very much for this.
Thank you,
Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Go Bears. Go Bears.
Congratulations, Tenny. Thank you so much for everything you've done.